Hey Hoopballers, are you into sports betting? Do you want to know why a certain game has a funky line? Well, Hoopball has you covered. Today in Sports Betting is a great addition to all your handicapping questions with hosts Ira Silver and Devin Ellington. We break down game lines and future bets on all sports and try to make some money along the way. Follow us on Twitter at Hoopball Gaming, at Ira Silver Magic, and at DALE007. And download Today in Sports Betting in the App Store, Google Play, and available on Spotify.
The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
Good morning, Hoop Ballers, and welcome to another edition of Hoop Ball DFS Today. I'm your host, and I'm riding solo on this one, Santino Cacone. It's another day of basketball, another day of fun, another day of DraftKings and DFS. And just like last night's podcast, they're doing the two-game slate. They did Friday and Saturday, and they're doing Saturday and Sunday as a single slate, and also the showdown slate. Maybe I didn't mention this yet, but it is September 19th. This will be Saturday. And we have the Boston Celtics versus the Miami Heat. And then on Sunday, which is what we'll talk about as well because they are on the same slate, the Denver Nuggets versus the LA Lakers for Game 2. So I don't know if you guys have been catching all these games, but they've been great, especially this first series, the Celtics and Heat. These first two matchups, the Heat came back both games. It went to the wire both times, and it's been awesome both games. I've had a blast watching them, and this Lakers-Nuggets series looks like it's going to be a fun one as well. I don't know if they can match the awesomeness that we saw in the other series because it is very hard to match, but they're doing their best. I'm recording this one late right before that game starts, so we will. Hopefully I can get back out and catch 3/4 of this one. But this should be fairly quick. There's only two games. There's one of me. I'll break down the main slate and then a little bit of the showdown slate because there are a little bit of different pricings there. But we'll see what what we got here. So the first game that's going to happen is going to be at 8:30 p.m. on Saturday, and that's what I mentioned earlier, the Celtics versus the Heat. Right now, the early line is, again, the Heat are the underdogs. They're getting 3 points in this one. They are plus 125 on the money line. The Celtics are negative 145 on the money line, and the over-under is 206.5. There is nothing on the Lakers Nuggets as of yet. It is a little early. We haven't even seen game one yet, or I haven't yet. So that line is not coming out. And as far as the injury report, that'll be something that we'll catch up on that game as well. But the Celtics have Gordon Hayward is questionable. They're saying he's probably going to return, so keep an eye out for him. He changes up a lot of things here. And Javonte Green is probable, and Romeo Langford is out. That's all they have. And as far as the Heat, Andre Iguodala is probable, and Chris Silva is out. So again, on the injury front, Gordon Hayward is the news to watch here. And there's also some other news that the Celtics were screaming up and down in the locker room. I saw Marcus Smart was visibly upset, I heard, and screaming and came out of the locker room yelling. Other news to watch, but they are down 0-2, and they did blow two leads to this Heat team. But both games have been, like I said earlier, down to the wire. So let's jump right in here. All right, and if you haven't already, before I jump in, if you haven't already gone to MyBookie and typed in the promo code HoopBall, that's HOOPBALL, go do that now. Get your conference finals bets in there. Get your NHL bets in there. NFL is on Sunday, which is the second half of this breakdown. So definitely going to want to get in week 2 there. We have golf, UFC. They have everything that you could do. They have the casino. They have racing, live bets. I like live betting myself. But I've been playing MyBookie for a little while now, and it is super fun. And yes, they do pay when you win. So don't have to worry about that. That their slogan is exactly what they do. You bet, you win, they pay. And all three of those are right on the money as far as I have been concerned so far. They have always paid me right out and right quickly. So don't have to worry about that one. But after that, let's get right into this slate, guys. Like I mentioned, it should be a pretty quick one. The first game, Celtics Heat, and let's start with the Celtics here. So we have the three big guys are Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kemba Walker. Tatum is at 9-8. Brown is at 7-8. Kemba Walker is at 7-6. And so starting with Jason Tatum, last game he really underwhelmed. He only took 12 shots. He did make half of his shots, but he really underwhelmed. He didn't crash the boards like he's been crashing the boards. He had double-digit rebounds pretty much like 6 straight games, and then before that it was 9, 8, 9, and then 15. So he'd been crashing the boards heavy. Last game he only had 5, so that's why there was a big downturn there. He had 4 assists, which he'd been dishing the ball out a lot more as well. But those two big things there, and he only scored 21 points because he did take 12 shots. He had 11 free throws, though. But those two things there, not rebounding as much and not taking as many shots, that explains why he only scored just under 35 fantasy points. If Gordon Hayward comes back, though, you have to imagine he takes a little bit of ball handling duties, a couple shots here and there, a little bit of usage. For 9-8, I'm going to... I just think I'd rather pay up to get an Anthony Davis. I'd rather pay up to get a Nikola Jokic. I'd rather pay up to get a LeBron James. And even Jamal Murray, who's a little cheaper there, is in a better spot for me against the Lakers. So I'm going to have to not play much of Tatum, especially if I'm only doing a couple lineups. I don't think I'll see any of those lineups. If I'm doing a ton of them, I'll get a tiny bit of usage. But again, this is a very tough matchup for both teams. But for most of these guys, these are two very good defensive teams, two teams that can rotate. Everybody on the Heat pretty much can rotate 1 through 3, and then you have Bam Adebayo who can just guard anybody there. So there's a lot of good defenders out here and a lot of good switches out there that it's very hard for me to pay up 9-8 for Tatum when there are. You can for 600-700 more. You can get Anthony Davis, who I like the matchup better. Jaylen Brown, he dropped down. He was over 8K the last game. He dropped down to 7-8. That's not a bad price tag for me. But again, I want to see the Gordon Hayward news. If Gordon Hayward is coming back, even if he starts off with 24 minutes in that first one, that just takes a little bit of usage out of everybody. So I'm going to want to see where Jaylen Brown stacks up on that. So I'm going to be paying very close attention. But for 7-8, I don't mind that price tag. I think that's a pretty good price tag. I'd rather pay the $2,000 discount and take a Jaylen Brown than pay that extra $2,000 and get Jason Tatum, because I know I can get Anthony Davis for a little bit more. But yeah, I think Jaylen Brown is a pretty good price tag, so I will be looking close to there. But I do have more interest in Kemba Walker. I said that in the first game. I remember on Monday or Tuesday's podcast, I was saying that I wanted to see Kemba show that he was healthier because he didn't look fully healthy. That the end of that Raptor series, he looked pretty good in game 1, and then game 2 he looked a lot better. At 7-6 though and 7-8, the upside there for these two guys, and most people in the playoffs, when you're getting to the Eastern Conference and Western Conference Finals, it's hard to have that massive blow-up game to where you're getting 7-8x. It's just defenses clamp down. You're playing a little bit slower. Competition is a lot better. A lot of different factors into why people can't get huge returns here for the most part. But I think Kemba Walker is pretty safe for 35, 40-ish points. But again, it all comes down to Gordon Hayward. If Gordon Hayward comes back, he takes a lot of usage out of Kemba Walker, who's already giving up a lot of ball handling and facilitating to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Marcus Smart has put himself into the facilitator mode a little bit more lately as well. So Gordon Hayward would, if he returns, Kemba Walker's price is a little tricky for me, but I still like him. I would prefer him over Tatum as well, and Slight discount on Brown. I don't mind it as well. And then we have the other guys out here are Marcus Smart for 6,900. He's been really playing great. But for 6,900, I think that's a little too rich for my blood, especially knowing that he's going to be primarily guarding either Jimmy Butler or Goran Dragic, somebody, and most of his value comes there. Again, Gordon Hayward. I keep coming back to this because we haven't had Gordon Hayward pretty much in this entire playoffs. So coming back to Gordon Hayward, it puts a little damper on most of these guys just because he is there, and that gives them another ball handler, another usage guy, another facilitator, all these things that they haven't had in the last, 2 rounds of the playoffs. But Marcus Smart for 6'9", probably not going to gravitate towards him too much either. As far as the man of the hour, who I keep bringing up, Gordon Hayward, 6'6" for his first game back. I can't pay that price tag. 6'6" for your first game back, and you haven't played in just over a month. 8/17, August 17th was the last time he played a basketball game. I don't know if he's going to get thrown in for 30 minutes, but this is the Eastern Conference Finals. They are down 2-0, so maybe if he is ready to go, they're just going to throw him out there and see what he can do. It's very hard to take a month off and get thrown right into the fire like that, so I don't fully expect it. But again, if there is a time to do it and throw someone right into the fire, it's when it's your back's against the wall and it's win or go home pretty much. Because if they go down 0-3, they can pack their bags and get ready to go home. But 6'6", I need to see a game or two to make sure he's there, make sure he's not fully rusty, make sure the minutes are there, and all this other stuff before I can invest in him at 6'6". Daniel Tice is the next big guy over here at 5'4". I don't mind some Daniel Tice, though he hasn't been playing how I'd hope. This series has been a little tough on him, but I think he's due for a bounce back. I think this is a pretty solid price tag for him. I think he can get 25, 30 DK points, so I don't mind looking at him there. Though the fact that we saw Enes Kanter play 11 minutes the other night is pretty significant. Him playing 11 minutes with Rob Williams still seeing the floor and Grant Williams, and both Williams, I should say, seeing the floor for a handful of minutes, that doesn't make me too excited for Tice. But I think he is the most talented of the three in this court, and he's very underrated. So I lean towards him. But in general, this Celtics team, I think they have to win this game, so they're going to come out and fire. I know. I mentioned earlier, we heard there was rumors that Marcus Smart was freaking out, that they were having dissension and panicking in the locker room, but they are a young team, so they need someone. Marcus Smart took the bull by the horns there and tried to rein in these young guys. But I think this is going to be pretty much a team effort in this game. I do like Kemba at his price tag the most, but it's very hard in this matchup. If you didn't play any Celtics, I wouldn't, as my buddy Mike says, I wouldn't knock you for it. If I was going to play one the most, it would be Kemba Walker, though. As far as the rest of the ancillary pieces, I guess I don't mind if Gordon Hayward doesn't play. I don't mind Brad Wanamaker. He looks like the sixth man in this matchup, and he's played 25 and 24 minutes. That's half the game in both games this series. If he's going to play roughly half the game at 3,500, it's a very good price tag that I can get behind. You're not going to find people that cheap that are playing half the game or more and can bring you back decent value in this kind of scenario in the Eastern Conference and Western Conference Finals. So in that circumstance, if Gordon Hayward doesn't play, I like Wanamaker. And if Gordon Hayward doesn't play, everybody else that I talked about that I was a little hesitant on gets a slight bump. Pretty more than a slight bump. I would like Kemba Walker more. I would like Jaylen Brown a little bit more than I said. And maybe give Tatum a look as well, but still I'd rather pay up for the bigger guys. That's pretty much it for the Celtics on my end. I'll jump right over to the Heat now. So the Heat, we have the big guys pricing-wise are Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, and Goran Dragic. Bam Adebayo is now the leader at 85. Butler is 83. And Goran Dragic is 75. No, I'm not talking about his age or anything else. I'm talking about his price tag. Let's start with Bam Adebayo. He put up over 40 points these first two games. I see it continuing. I just like his matchup. He's really good, and he's playing every second that he's out on the court. It looks like he's giving it all. His all. He never has any downtime. He's played 43 and 35 minutes. He's taken 28 total shots, 13 free throws. In that first game, he had 43 points and only had 6 rebounds. He's getting it done on defense. He's getting it done passing, rebounding, getting to the line, hitting most of his shots. Pretty much what he's been doing all year. I think he's very safe at 85, and I see another 40 points from him. He's going to hit value, so I like him more than I would rather pay up a little bit extra for a Jaylen Brown to a Bam Adebayo. But the one thing that I'm going to see is usually I like a lot of the guards. In this slate, I like more of the big men. So we'll see how that one plays out for me. I'm probably going to have to get some of these guards that I'm not huge on, but we'll see from there. Jimmy Butler, he scored under 40 points both these games. He's seeing a lot of Marcus Smart. They have a few people that can guard him, and he hasn't had to take over. He's been playing a very tough defense, been awesome out there. He's only taken 25 shots, though. But for 200 less than Bam, I'd just prefer Bam in this matchup. I think it's a lot easier for him. He's the better matchup. He's not playing one of the guys who was on the one of the best defenders in basketball. Bam is also exerting a ton of his energy on the defensive end because he has to guard multiple people from he's been guarding Tatum all the way to Kemba Walker. So I just like Adebayo just a little bit more for 200 extra. And I like that difference there. I think the floor is safer. Maybe we can have a big Jimmy game and the ceiling's higher, but Jimmy's playing very tough nose defense, guarding a bunch of different people and trying to close in the fourth quarter, and that's what he's doing great. So I think the formula has been working for them, and it's going to stick. So I like the 200 extra for Adebayo. And that brings us to our third guy. The third highest guy in this team is Goran Dragic. And man, that week off did wonders to him, and this entire couple months off did wonders to him because he's been playing fantastic. This guy does not look like he is a mid 30-year-old veteran. He looks like he's in his late 20s right now. He's playing fantastic at 75. I said it last time. It's a little high. At 73 was a little high. 75 is slightly high. But just like I said last time, this guy has been playing so well that I don't mind that price tag. If you're up to him and Kemba Walker, if Gordon Hayward plays, or Gordon Hayward, I'm putting their both names up there. If Gordon Hayward plays, I like Goran Dragic better. It's just he's been so safe. His lowest game point total in this entire bubble was 24.5, and that was the closeout game against Milwaukee. They didn't really need him. There was no Giannis. They just didn't need him. But besides that, he's only put in this entire bubble. We're talking about the play-in games as well, or the seeding games. He's only put under 30 points twice. So at 75, you're pretty much his floor is 5x close to it. So great value. No matter what he's priced at right now, it's just he's playing out of his mind. Very good value. Then let's go to the little ancillary pieces that they got who are also playing very well. This team as a whole is just playing really well. You have Tyler Herro, Jay Crowder, Duncan Robinson. Those are the top three. Kelly Olynyk saw a little bit of time in this series, 23 total minutes. And then you have Andre Iguodala seeing a little bit of time in this series. Kendrick Nunn. Those three guys I'm not fully gravitating towards unless I'm in a big pinch right there. But besides that, I'm going to leave everybody Duncan Robinson below out. Well, not Duncan Robinson, below Duncan Robinson. I'm not going to touch them. As far as Duncan Robinson, I think he had his big shooting game last game. He made 6 of 12 from the field, which all coincidentally happened to be 3. because he is a great three-point shooter. I don't know if it carries over to the next game. And if he's not taking and hitting 6 threes, he's not going to be putting up 30 points and getting a big value. But at 44, if you're stuck around the 4K range, and that's like your last spot, I don't mind playing him. But again, the floor for him is not as safe as the other guys, like Jay Crowder and Tyler Herro. But those two guys are 1,500 and 1,600 more than him. Out of those two, out of Herro and Crowder, I'm going to like a lot of power forwards on the slate, especially the big guy AD. I think Tyler Herro he's the play. He was my play last game. He's my play this game out of those two. I think both of them could put up 30 points, but I just like the way Tyler Herro is playing right now. It looks like the moment is not too big for this guy at all. It looks like the moment's just tiny for him, and he's playing great. He's facilitating the basketball a lot. 14 assists the last 2 games, and he has 20 rebounds the last 2 games. 28 the last 3 games. I don't know how many rebounds are going to last and if those 2 things are going to last, but while he's playing really well, I give him the edge over Crowder there. And at 6K, that's not bad. I'd rather, especially if Gordon Hayward plays, I'd rather take my chances with Herro over a Smart or a Hayward. But if you're playing, I said a lot of Heat guys that I like. That's where the pivot to a Kemba Walker instead of Goran Dragic makes sense to me because I'm liking a lot of Heat guys, but I can't play the entire Heat team and avoid the Celtics there. But that's pretty much it for that game, and I'll get to the showdown slate in a little bit with that game because the pricing does change ever so slightly now that you only have one game. But before I get on to the Nuggets-Lakers, I want to remind everybody about one of our partnering sponsors, and that is Manscaped. Go to manscaped.com and enter the promo code HoopBall20. That's HOOPBALL20 and get 20% off of your entire order and free shipping. I have the Perfect Package 3.0, and as I said many of times on this podcast already, it is absolutely fantastic. Another partnering sponsor that we have, and I'm super excited to introduce, is ExpressVPN. So I actually have ExpressVPN for the last 3 years. I lived out of the country. I lived in China for a couple of years, and this was the only VPN that I trusted, and it was the only VPN that worked. It was the best possible VPN. Maybe not the only one that worked. Other people had different ones, but this one was grade A, and I wouldn't have been able to survive without it, with everything that you cannot access. But ExpressVPN was a lifesaver when I was not here in this country. Literally can't. I still have it today, even though I'm back home and I can access Netflix, I can access Hulu or anything that you want to add, Google, all this type of stuff that I couldn't access then, I could still access. But ExpressVPN was so good that I continue to use it. And you can access like UK Netflix if you wanted, something else like that. Anything that you name, anything that you can or want to use and you name it, you can access it. And you use different locations. So if you know what the VPN is, I'm telling you, ExpressVPN is the cream of the crop in the VPN world. And if you're looking for one, definitely give it a look. All right, guys, now on to the Nuggets-Lakers game. This will be game 2. This starts at 7:30 on Sunday. Again, there's no spread for it at the moment. There's no injury report as well at the moment. Let's start with the Nuggets, who are quote-unquote the away team in this one. You have Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray at 10.7 and 9K respectively. They're both in really good matchups. Jokic has been playing out of his mind. No matter who he's playing, he has the potential to put up a triple-double, though he's going up against 2 very big guys in Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. And then when Anthony Davis gets a little bit of minutes at center, he's going against him. So out of those 3 big guys, I'd rather lean towards Anthony Davis at 200 less. I think Paul Millsap is a very good defender, but he's just smaller. And I think he can take advantage of him a lot more, but I'll get to that in a moment. So as far as prices, I love Jokic, but I'd rather get some Bam exposure, maybe get some LeBron exposure or AD exposure as well. As far as Jamal Murray at 9K. I think this matchup is very good for him. Now that there's Rondo back, it's a little bit of a better defender than they had in the first couple rounds, the first round especially, and then during the seeding games, and then before Rondo came back. But now that he's back and healthy, it's a little bit of a harder matchup. But Jamal Murray at 9K, Rondo isn't the. I think his perception is a little bit better than he is as a defender, but he is a hard-nosed defender. In that scenario, I think Jamal Murray has the matchup advantage over Jokic in this one. And at 9K, I really like that. I'd rather pay for him than a extra 800 for a Jason Tatum. I just think has a good matchup in here. And I like him more than a Jimmy Butler too at 8-3. Just think if you're going to go point guard, I like if you're going to spend a little more on point guard or anybody, this is a pretty good spot to spend on him. He's very explosive and hard to guard, and he's been balling, and he's going to get his shots, especially when Rondo's not there. There's no one else that can guard him or even attempt to guard him on this team. So I think Murray is in a better spot there. As far as the rest of this team, you have Porter, Harris, Grant, Millsap, Morris, Craig, Plumlee. Plumlee, Craig, Morris, not really into them. Maybe Plumlee has to play in this matchup because there are a lot of bigs. When Jokic comes off, he's going to have to throw in Plumlee. So if you need a Hail Mary bargain bin guy at 3K, maybe you'll look Mason Plumlee's way. Craig, Morris, not too fond of them in this one. Morris is going to get some backup minutes, have a good matchup, but again, if I'm not at 3,400 and bargain binning, I'm not going to look his way. But he does have a decent matchup if you have to do a Hail Mary, I guess. Paul Millsap's going to mainly guard Anthony Davis. That's where all his energy is going to come, and Anthony Davis is going to guard him, and he has a huge size advantage on him. So I'm not going to be looking Paul Millsap's way. Same with I almost called him his brother, Jerami Grant. Yes, Breton and Mike, Jerami Grant at 4,600. Not going to look his way. He's going to have to be guarding LeBron James all night as LeBron's primary defender for 36 to 40 minutes. I'm okay with that. Anybody that's guarding and chasing down LeBron James, that's not a superstar. I'm okay with passing on them. Gary Harris, though, he's now at 4,900. I think him and Michael Porter Jr. are both pretty solid plays here. But I'd lean Gary Harris because Michael Porter Jr. can't hit. The knock on him in this playoffs has been his defense. If he's playing small forward or in trying to guard LeBron James, where Jerami Grant's not playing him, LeBron's going to tear him up. So I think we're going to see a lot more of Grant than Porter in this series, unless they put Porter at the 2 and go pretty big to match the Lakers' size. In that event, they'd have to bump Gary Harris, who shouldn't be bumped in the first place. So I like Gary Harris more for the playing time advantage and the matchup advantage at 49 than I would Michael Porter Jr. in this series. And I think that's a pretty good value for him, too. He can put up 25 to 30 DK points and give you 5, 6, 7x value right there. That's pretty much all I have on the Nuggets. It's hard matchup for the bigs, pretty solid matchup for their guards. And then we go to the big guys in the Lakers. I think LeBron James at 11-2, he is the highest guy on the slate, but this is a great matchup for him. Again, they have Jerami Grant, Michael Porter Jr., maybe Paul Millsap, Torrey Craig. None of these names are scaring me and making me want to shy away from LeBron James in this. Same with Anthony Davis, Paul Millsap, Jerami Grant, maybe Nikola Jokic. None of these names are scaring me into saying, okay, I don't fully trust him here. I think both them, they just have much better matchups than Jokic has on the other end, and Jason Tatum, who was also the other highest paid guy, has as well. So I would firmly rather pay up just to have one of these Lakers, and maybe even both of them. I'm not opposed to going both big Lakers and playing it from there because they're capable of having both big games at the same time and both putting up 50, 60 DraftKings points. As far as the other pieces on this team, they're all pretty much ancillary, as we know. JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard are going to have to play a little bit. They're not playing against the Rockets anymore, so Anthony Davis would prefer to play more power forward in that scenario. I guess, or I would lean a little bit Dwight Howard in this matchup, but I'm not really looking at either of them, trying to avoid them as best as possible. They're both going to be matched up against Nikola Jokic, and Jokic is just very good. Alex Caruso, now that Rondo's back up to speed, he's needed a little less. I'm not trying to look his way too much. Depends on how I'm feeling that day. Markieff Morris, they don't need him as much in this matchup. It's not a small ball team. It's a big team. So I don't think he's going to get as much run as he was getting. But Rondo and Kyle Kuzma are two guys that I'd be looking at 47 and 45. They're both going to be needed. They're both going to get some shots, some clean looks. I would lean more Kuzma. In most times, he might be guarding against, or Michael Porter Jr. might be guarding against, or I can't say those words. Michael Porter Jr. might be guarding him for the most part, and that's a very good matchup for Kuzma, who should take advantage of that. Danny Green and Caldwell Pope, they're pretty much hit or miss, so I try not to play them unless I need to, but Danny Green could bring back value. They both can bring back value on any given night, but they can also put up 12 DK points, so I try to avoid them unless I really need to. Depending on who had the hot night the night before, I usually go to the other guy or who's playing and shooting well. Right now it's Danny Green, so maybe I'll go Caldwell Pope next game. And that's pretty much it on the Lakers. It's the big guys as usual. Rondo and Kuzma have interest. I like Kuzma a little bit more in this series. He just has the better matchup. And then Danny Green, Pope, all these other guys you can play them, but at your own risk is how I would say it. All right. Let's go down to the showdown game because we also have this showdown there. And this should be, we already touched on who I like in this series, but let's talk about the pricing, a little bit discrepancy here. So as I always say, on DraftKings, when you're doing the showdown, you have the captain who gets 1.5 times more fantasy points than everybody else. But they also cost 1.5 times more in their salary than everybody else. So you're paying that half a point or that times 0.5 that you're getting, you're paying for it as well. So when I think about that, I try not to put, especially if I don't absolutely love the matchup for a guy and think he can't. If it was like James Harden going against the Wizards, I'd love to put him in there and get that 1.5 times point because I know he has a really good chance to get 70 to 80 DraftKings points and then times that by half and just crushing value. But in the Eastern Conference Finals, it's very hard for me to put a Jason Tatum, a Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler in that captain spot, paying that extra salary and then putting myself in a bind for the rest of the 6 spots and trying to fill out the rest of my team with not as much money. So especially in a matchup like this, that these teams are going very hard at each other, I'm going to look and try and get more of a deal if I can and put someone else there. Like right here, I would probably look at Tyler Herro's way as a captain for 10-8. That means you have a little over $39K to play with for the rest of your lineup, and then you could get a Bam Adebayo. You could get Kemba Walker, Goran Dragic, all these guys together. If you put Jason Tatum as your captain, you're at 34, and that's an extra $5,000 of a player that you're missing out on. But as far as pricing, we'll start with the utility. 9.2 for Adebayo. I like him more than Tatum. I think that's a very good look. Tatum's 10.4. Now that it's just a single game and you're not paying up for a LeBron James or an Anthony Davis or Nikola Jokic, I like Tatum a little bit more on this one as well. They have to win. I think he's going to come out firing. So in this showdown, I like him a little bit more at 10.4. I do like Adebayo. I think he's just very safe. So if you don't want to spend that 10.4 or you don't have the 10.4 because you put someone bigger in your captain spot, I think Adebayo is the safer play, but Tatum has the higher ceiling. Jimmy Butler for 9K. I would just rather have Adebayo there. Now that there's no position eligibility or there's nothing matter about position, I'd just rather have Adebayo as the safer play. Same with Jaylen Brown. Adebayo 600 more. I think he's just the safer play. Then you're probably going to want to get at least one of Kemba Walker, Goran Dragic. I like both of them. If I see myself leaning towards a lot more Heat players, which I've been saying a little bit, I'd go Kemba Walker, but I think both of them could fit in your lineup. It all depends on what Gordon Hayward does. If he doesn't play, all three of those Celtic guys get a nice bump in there, and that's where I'd be leaning. I would be leaning Kemba Walker and Jaylen Brown a little bit more. And then, you got Tyler Herro, Jay Crowder at 7'2", 6'8". Obviously, these are inflated prices, but where we are, this isn't bad for them when we're only playing a one-game slate. Yeah, and then if you have to, you might have to throw in a Brad Wanamaker or Daniel Tice. I mean, you could get most of these guys. You could get like Daniel Tice, Kemba Walker, Herro, Dragic, Crowder, Adebayo. You can make a very solid team here and not have to put in Brad Wanamaker. But if you have to, him, Duncan Robinson aren't bad of plays. I like Duncan Robinson a little bit more. Daniel Tice, I mentioned earlier, I think he has a solid bounce back as long as we don't see a lot of these backup bigs play so many minutes. If Daniel Tice looks good early, I think more minutes funnel his way because he has been the main center, the main big guy on this team for the most part. So if he has a big first quarter or looks pretty good out there, I think most of the minutes funnel him. And at 6'2", I think that's a very good price. That's almost his normal price. So I think that's very good, and I like him in this one. He's one of my better plays as the showdown slate because he really is only a couple hundred more than he is normally. So it's very good for him. And while everybody's getting priced up a couple hundred extra, but his is still so low that that's a nice floor for him and a nice spot. And that's pretty much the difference in how I see it in the showdown slate. I still like most of the same guys, pretty much all the same guys. It's just I'm trying not kill myself and handicap myself by putting someone in the captain spot that is top tier, because this is the Eastern Conference Finals. This is a bloodbath. And if I do that, then the rest of my utils are going to have to be downgraded. And there's just not many options too low. Like I wouldn't want to put Olynyk in, like two of Olynyk, Iguodala, Kendrick Nunn, Brad Wanamaker, Duncan Robinson. I wouldn't want to put two of those guys in there. And I feel if you put Tatum in there and you still want a good lineup at your util spots, or Adebayo as your captain and you still want to get good util spots, then that's where you might have to go, and that's just handicapping yourself. So I like a Tyler Herro or someone of that nature, maybe even Dragic or Walker if you're feeling it's a little higher, but if you're feeling okay about it, those are two good guys as well. All right, guys, that does it for the Saturday, September 19th edition of Hoopball DFS. I was your host, Santino Caccone. You can follow me on Twitter at Santino Caccone. That's at SANTINOCACCONE. And if you can, guys, if you want to give us a like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, do that. Make sure to check out all our other podcasts. We have betting podcasts going. The NFL's back, so you're going to want to get on that. These guys do a great job. We have around the association and all this other good stuff going on. So continue to do everything, and see you next time. I believe Mike will be on here tomorrow to touch up on the Sunday game, and there is no Monday game, so it should be just a Sunday showdown. And as always, guys, good luck, and we will see you tomorrow.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.